So based on these first two videos, what is Palestine and who are the Palestinians? Based on those two, I want to follow up with this final one, and that is this. The idea of standing with Palestinians in order to end settlers' colonialism, and being an advocate for Palestinian liberation by fighting for the land and bombing Israel is both ridiculous and disingenuous, and at the heart of it is just evil. In 1968, Golda Meir, in talking about the suggestion to give land back to the Palestinians, she said this: "How could we return the occupied territories? There's no one to return them to. There wasn't a people that was there to begin with that they stole it from, i.e. Palestinians in Palestine. It's a made-up word, and it's a people group, an identity of a people for political and military purposes. There's simply no historical nation of Palestine, nor historical Palestinians who once owned the land as their ancestors did. Any such activity to have the Jewish nation return land to the Palestinians is simply a move to remove Israel and the Jews from the land and ultimately from the earth. To be clear, the stated goal of the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, that was created in 1964. See, this is part of the problem. Some of this is so old, the younger generation are not students of history, and our culture believes sound bites more than anything else and doesn't do any research. The PLO, created in 1964, was created during the Arab League Summit in Cairo, states this: "The liberation of Palestine through armed struggle while seeking to destroy the existence of Zionism in the Middle East is our goal." That's their whole goal. The liberation of Palestine through the armed struggle while seeking to destroy the existence of Zionism in the Middle East. Those are the forces that are at work today in the shelling of Israel. The interesting thing is that the ones who are actually shelling Israel, that Israel is trying to defend itself against, is not the Palestinians and it's not the PLO, it's Hamas. Hamas was founded in the 1980s in response to the PLO because they thought they were extremists. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They were extremists, and they believed that the PLO wasn't powerful enough nor extreme enough to eradicate Zionism. But unlike the PLO, Hamas doesn't recognize Israel's right to exist. So Hamas exists so that Israel can't exist. They want to exterminate them. And the war that's going on right now that we see in Israel is Hamas launching rockets into Israel because their stated purpose is to eradicate Israel from the earth. And Hamas will launch rockets, try to launch rockets into Israel. So grateful for the Iron Dome that protects Israel from missiles flying over into their land and killing their people. But Hamas, in trying to bomb Israel, will use their own people, the Palestinians, to shield Hamas. Israel, in their response, makes it known the targets that they're targeting, when they're going to hit them, and will give people a little bit of time, at least, to get out so they can vacate those premises before the missiles hit. So Israel's doing more to protect the Palestinians than Hamas is doing, and Hamas is supposed to be fighting for them. It's ridiculous. That's not going to be told on our evening news nor on Twitter feeds. And so people are going to believe sound bites. This is what's really going on behind the war in Israel today. Think about that when you hear about the bombing of the poor Palestinians by mean Israel. Think about that. Regarding the liberation of Palestine, when you hear those words, think about that. When you're asked to support the Palestinians against Israel, or you're asked to support the eradication of Israel. Now, I'm not advocating for war at all. I think there needs to be a ceasefire. It would be fantastic if there could be peace in that land. I don't know that there ever will be until an ultimate peacekeeper comes. But for now, peace would be the best thing without a shadow of a doubt. There needs to be a ceasefire. Everybody needs to stop throwing rocks. However, please understand that what's going on there is not big bad Israel trying to take poor little Palestinians' land. That's not what's happening. This is a struggle that's been going on for eons to eradicate Israel from the land. It will not happen. Um, but if 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 the powers that be that want Israel out can make Israel out to be the bad guy, they're going to do that. It's very important what the United States government does. In the past, there's been, by and large, an unquestioned support from the United States government on behalf of Israel. This administration is a little bit shaky. There's a lot in this administration on the far left that would rather do away with Israel than support them. Um, that would be a profound mistake. If I had any credibility or power whatsoever, I would urge this administration to back Israel 100%. I understand people in America are supposed to have the right to protest. They certainly do if it is towing the party line. Um, it seems as though that's becoming in question as well. Um, that the whole cancel culture can cancel anybody. It seems like don't really care, don't have much of a following anyway. But support for Israel right now is not very popular, but is the absolute right thing to do. So anyway, look at those other two videos. Where this whole idea of Palestine come from? Where this whole idea of Palestinians come from? And this is really what's going on in that part of the world right now. If you're going to protest, I get it, but just at least do it with some knowledge, at least do it with some wisdom, at least do it with some understanding that what's being portrayed by the news is not at all what the truth is. Don't ever expect you get that from the news at this point. It's not social media. Don't believe the news feeds on Twitter. Be smart.